The eternal lamps of Rome. Their glow is something that lives more in whispers than in certainty. History remembers them faintly, in scattered mentions, in quiet lines that often seem too small to notice. And yet, people of the ancient world once believed that flames could be coaxed into lasting forever. Not just hours, not days, not even years, but centuries. They believed in lights that would never go out. The Romans were not the first to think of such lamps, but they were perhaps the ones who carried the story far enough that it became a legend. In temples, in hidden tombs, in remote corners of their vast empire, there were reports of lamps burning steadily, without oil being added, without firewood being brought. They were called perpetual lamps, and the Romans treated them with a kind of respectful curiosity. Imagine the streets of Rome at night. The clatter of sandals on stone roads, the murmur of merchants closing their stalls, the sudden hush when you step into a temple precinct. The air grows heavier, filled with incense and faint smoke. Somewhere in the dark hall, beyond the columns, a flame is flickering. But it is no ordinary flame. Priests whisper that this flame has been burning for decades, without pause. Travelers record it in their writings, not always with full belief, but never with dismissal either. One story tells of a lamp found in the tomb of Pallas, the son of King Evander. It was said that this lamp had burned for nearly 4 centuries without fuel. Another mentions a temple lamp dedicated to Venus that had been glowing long after those who lit it were gone. The Roman historian Pliny wrote with fascination about natural oils, about materials that might explain such wonders. And yet, even his careful words leave the impression that no simple answer was enough. People thought perhaps it was magic. Some whispered it was the work of alchemy, the art of turning substances into something endless. Others believed the gods themselves had given these flames their strength. For the Romans, fire was sacred. Vesta, the goddess of the hearth, was guarded by her priestesses, the Vestal virgins, whose only duty was to keep the sacred flame alive. To them, an eternal lamp was not impossible. It was simply the extension of divine presence. Still, time wears everything down, even stories. The eternal lamps did not last forever. Reports say that when the tombs were opened, when temples fell, the flames went out. They left behind charred wicks, dry bowls, and unanswered questions. Scholars, centuries later, tried to explain them. Some thought the lamps used hidden supplies of oil, cleverly fed through channels carved in stone. Others suggested that certain materials burned so slowly that a single portion could last a lifetime. And yet none of these explanations feel fully complete. Picture yourself in one of those tombs. Dust settles around you. The stone is cool, carved with names now forgotten. You expect silence, darkness, but instead you find a lamp. Its tiny flame dances, soft and unwavering. No one has entered this chamber in hundreds of years, and yet the light is still alive. What would you think in that moment? Would you believe it? Would you fear it? Or would you simply watch, letting the faint glow soften your eyes until sleep almost overtook you? The Romans may have thought of these flames as symbols more than science. For them, a lamp that did not go out was proof that memory could last, that honor could survive death. It was a comfort against the slow erosion of time. The empire itself was vast, unshakable, or so they thought. To see a flame resisting the years was like seeing Rome itself, eternal and unending. But nothing lasts forever. Not empires, not marble, not flames. The stories of the eternal lamps drifted slowly into legend. Christian writers who came later spoke of them with a mixture of skepticism and awe. Some said they were tricks of the devil, meant to fool the faithful. Others quietly wondered if the ancients had simply known something that was now forgotten. Even today, when archaeologists uncover ruins, they sometimes wonder what small secrets still lie buried, waiting to be found. The lamps themselves are gone. No one has found one still burning, though pieces, fragments of clay bowls, bronze stands, half-melted wicks have been discovered. They sit now in museums, quiet, unlit, their power reduced to silence. And yet, when you look at them, it's hard not to imagine, hard not to see, in your mind, a small golden flame swaying gently, defying the centuries, the eternal lamps of Rome. Perhaps they never truly burned forever. Perhaps it was only the human need to believe in something lasting, something untouchable that gave them their glow. But whether real or imagined, they served their purpose. They lit not only the temples and tombs, but also the imagination. And in that sense, they are still burning. If you close your eyes and imagine Rome not as ruins, but as a living city, the idea of endless lamps begins to feel less like a legend and more like a natural extension of Roman life. Fire was everywhere in their world. It was in the torches that lit the streets at night, in the great braziers that warmed their baths, in the sacred hearths of their gods, and in the countless small lamps that burned in homes illuminating stories and suppers. A Roman household would often keep small clay or bronze lamps, simple objects with a shallow bowl, a handle, and a spout where the wick extended. Olive oil was the usual fuel, sometimes perfumed with herbs. In a dark room, the light from a single lamp was soft, almost golden. Imagine rows of these lamps flickering gently, painting shadows on the painted walls, catching the edges of mosaics on the floor. To those who lived by such lights, the thought of one that never went out must have seemed deeply comforting. Priests and scholars often debated what these flames meant. Were they merely tricks of design or proof of divine favor? The Romans were not strangers to spectacle. They admired engineering, the cleverness of architects, the genius of inventors, yet they also held reverence for mystery. In temples, when the air grew thick with smoke and chants, a lamp burning ceaselessly would not be questioned. It would be worshipped. The poet Ovid once described flames as the breath of the gods. To him, eternal fire was not only possible but necessary, for the gods themselves could not be imagined without light. Vesta's temple in Rome kept its flame alive year after year, guarded by the Vestals. If ever it went out, it was considered an omen of disaster. In such a world, an eternal lamp was less a marvel and more a natural truth. The gods demanded light, and the people ensured it was never lost. And yet, there were places where no human hand tended the flame. That was the heart of the mystery. Tombs sealed for centuries, chambers locked and forgotten, were found with flames still burning inside. Plutarch, in his writings, records such accounts. Augustine, centuries later, would question them. How could fire live without air? How could a wick last longer than its own thread? How could oil sustain itself? Even today, scientists wonder if such lamps were possible. There are materials that burn slowly, substances like asbestos used in wicks, or natural resins that release fuel gradually. It is not impossible that the ancients discovered mixtures of oils and metals that prolonged combustion. But even the most generous calculations would allow for years, perhaps decades, not centuries. And so, the story of the eternal lamps continues to drift, somewhere between science and imagination. For those seeking sleep, imagine the flicker of that flame. Not bright, not sharp, but soft. It dances gently, never too quick, never too wild. Its light stretches lazily across stone walls, never changing, never dimming. Time passes, the seasons, the years, the centuries, and still the flame breathes quietly, unbothered. Around it, empires rise and fall, but within the chamber, there is only the steady glow. The Romans saw eternity in stone, in arches, in roads that refused to crumble. But even those things cracked. Fire, however, was alive. It moved, it swayed, it consumed. And to imagine that such a restless thing could be eternal was to imagine eternity itself made visible. The lamp became more than an object. It became a philosophy. Travelers carried these stories beyond Rome. In Egypt, in Greece, in far-off Gaul, there were whispers of lamps burning in temples long abandoned. Some said they were protected by spells. Others believed strange natural forces, hidden underground, fed the flames. When Christianity spread across the empire, the stories did not disappear. Instead, they transformed. Eternal lamps were now described as either divine miracles or dangerous illusions. Augustine, the Christian thinker, spoke of a lamp that had burned for many years in a temple to Venus. He admitted its wonder, but dismissed it as the work of demons, eager to mislead mankind. The truth was less important than the belief. What mattered was not whether the flames truly lasted forever, but that people thought they could. In the restless nights of Rome, where fear of death, of war, of famine lingered, the idea of a light that never dimmed was a comfort. It was something to cling to when so much else was uncertain. So much of Rome has crumbled into dust. The streets once crowded are now silent. The baths are empty, the temples roofless, the forums bare. Yet the stories of the eternal lamps remain. They are not ruins we can walk among, but ideas that still glow faintly in the imagination. A light that burns without end. Perhaps not real, but still alive in thought. And that is its own kind of eternity. The mystery of the eternal lamps, as the centuries passed, became less about proof and more about wonder. Writers in the Middle Ages still mention them, as if the glow of Rome's forgotten flames lingered in memory long after the empire was gone. To them, these lamps were symbols of forbidden knowledge, secrets from a world that had vanished. Some believed they were made by alchemists who had discovered hidden elements. Others thought they were relics of a time when humans walked closer to gods. Alchemists especially were fascinated. They saw in the idea of an endless flame a reflection of their own dream, the creation of something everlasting, something beyond decay. A lamp that never died was like the philosopher a S-stone in another form, not metal turned to gold, but fire refusing to turn into ash. It was said that if one could master such a flame, one could unlock the very essence of eternity. The truth, however, may have been much simpler. The ancients were skilled in blending oils, resins, and minerals. Certain oils burn far more slowly than others. Certain wicks, made from asbestos or treated fibers, resist consumption. A sealed chamber with little airflow could preserve a small flame for much longer than expected. To people unprepared for such sights, even a lamp that burned quietly for years might seem eternal. But science cannot dim the poetry. The poetry lies in the thought, not the fact. Now imagine this: a silent crypt beneath the stones of Rome. Dust is everywhere. The air is thick, unmoving. And there in the darkness, a lamp continues to glow. You step closer, watching its flame shiver gently, as if it knows you are there. Its light softens the carvings on the wall, illuminating symbols once sacred. No sound reaches you except the faint hiss of the wick. It is a small world, this circle of light, and yet it feels infinite. People in those times would often tell these stories as they prepared for rest. They would describe them in hushed voices, with the same reverence we give to lullabies. It was not just a tale of fire, but of comfort. Something in the mind settled when imagining a light that could not be stolen by time. Even now, when you listen, you may feel your own thoughts slow, the image of that small flame keeping you gently awake and gently asleep at once. If you are enjoying this quiet journey, let me remind you softly. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps the flame of these stories stay alive, so that more can drift into the calm of history and find rest. Returning to the story, it is worth noting that not every Roman believed in such things. Skepticism was always alive, even in the ancient world. Some philosophers mocked the notion. They argued that nothing natural could last forever, not even fire. The lamp, they said, was only a trick, a clever illusion created by men who wished to impress or deceive. And yet these skeptics could never quite erase the fascination. Even those who doubted still repeated the stories. As Rome declined, the eternal lamps became metaphors. They stood for endurance in the face of ruin, for the persistence of memory in a world of forgetting. A poet in the late empire wrote of a lamp burning in the ruins of a temple, untouched by the wind, untouched by time. It was of course an invention, but his readers understood. The lamp was not real. It was Rome itself, struggling to glow as the world grew darker. And so the legend traveled into new lands. When the empire fell, the lamp remained. Not the object itself, but the story. It drifted into monasteries, into dusty books copied by hand. It flickered in the corners of medieval imagination. Even now, in the modern age, the phrase eternal flame still stirs something quiet in us. We light candles for memory. We keep lamps burning in shrines, in graveyards, in silent churches. The Roman dream of a light that never fades is still alive, reshaped, but not forgotten. Even in the quietest corners of Rome, light was never truly absent. Small clay lamps were everywhere, in homes, on streets, in hidden shrines tucked between buildings. Each flame served a purpose. Some chased away literal darkness, while others, like the eternal lamps, seemed to chase away the darkness of the mind. They invited contemplation, patience, and gentle awe. Think of a small shrine deep within a forgotten villa. Dust motes float in the sunbeams, slipping through a crack in the wall. A tiny lamp burns on a stone altar, its glow soft, almost hesitant. Perhaps no one has tended it in decades, yet it remains lit, a small circle of warmth in a room that has long been silent. The air is still, but the mind, watching this lamp, begins to wander. It drifts back to other lamps, other shrines, other moments when light persisted against time. Roman citizens would often place lamps in public places as offerings. Some were burned for the dead, some for the gods, and some merely for the peace they brought. The gentle flicker became a companion, a reminder that even small flames could persist if treated with care. In a world full of noise and movement, a lamp's slow, steady burn offered a pause, a breathing space for thought, for sleep, for dreaming. Priests kept records of lamps, not because they believed all would last forever, but because the act of recording was itself meditative. They inscribed notes about the oils used, the size of the wick, the materials of the bowl. Tap, press, stroke. Writing became rhythm, rhythm became ritual, and ritual became calm. Even the simple act of noting down the position of a flame could quiet the mind. Imagine a young scribe, seated cross-legged on a marble floor. The room is quiet. Only the lamp's light dances across his hands as he traces letters onto a wax tablet. Tap, press, stroke. Each motion is deliberate. Each letter takes its time. Outside, the city murmurs, but inside, there is only this lamp, this scribe, and the slow rhythm of thought. The lamp seems eternal because the act of tending to it is eternal, repeated day after day. Some lamps were placed in tombs for the dead. Romans believed that light could guide the soul. They filled small clay vessels with oil, inserted a wick, and ensured it could burn for as long as possible. Perhaps these were not true eternal lamps, but for those who set them, the hope that they might persist was enough. There is comfort in imagining that someone, somewhere, rests in darkness with a small circle of light nearby. In libraries, lamps burned over scrolls. Scholars, too, found peace in the glow. Words on parchment became clearer under their light. Shadows moved softly across their hands, over the edges of scrolls, over the carved desks they leaned on. One imagines that these scholars, far from the temples, found the same solace that priests did. The lamp, after all, was more than fire. It was focus, patience, and gentle warmth. The eternal lamps also remind us that humans have always sought permanence. Rome, like all civilizations, understood the fragility of life. Buildings crumble, empires fall, people die. Yet a lamp, small and unassuming, might carry the faint hope that some part of existence could resist time. It is a quiet lesson in persistence, in the small rituals that give life continuity and calm. And so, the story drifts. Sometimes scholars speculate. Sometimes poets embellish, sometimes travelers repeat hearsay, but all carry the same gentle image, a lamp burning, soft and unwavering, amid the quiet ruin of human effort. It is not a tale of heroism or battle. It is a tale of stillness, endurance, and the slow passage of light through time. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this: a narrow chamber, stone walls lined with inscriptions. A lamp glows in the center, casting soft, golden light. Dust swirls lazily in the air. You take a deep breath and feel the calm settle into your chest. The flame flickers, but it does not waver. It has endured centuries, and in that endurance, it teaches patience, a quiet rhythm, a meditative stillness. Even as the centuries passed, the story of the eternal lamps reached far beyond Rome. Travelers carried tales along dusty roads, merchants whispered them in marketplaces, and teachers told them to students, their voices slow and deliberate, like a lullaby for history itself. Each retelling was slightly different, but all preserved the same core. A flame that refused to die, a light untouched by time. Consider a villa on the outskirts of the city, abandoned yet intact. Its columns lean slightly, its frescoes faded, but inside a lamp glows. The air smells faintly of olive oil and stone. In this silent space, there is nothing but the gentle flicker, and with it, a soft rhythm that soothes the mind. Tap, press, stroke. Not with a stylus, but with the rhythm of time itself, echoing softly in your imagination. The Romans were meticulous. They recorded the dimensions of their lamps, the quality of the wick, the purity of the oil. They observed the behavior of flames, noting even the subtlest differences between one vessel and another. This was not mere superstition. It was careful observation, a gentle study of endurance. The lamp's persistence was mirrored in the patience of those who watched it. Even in temples, where rituals were repeated endlessly, the lamps contributed to a serene monotony. Priests moved slowly, performing each step with precise deliberation. The flame illuminated carved stone and etched metal, tracing shapes and shadows across walls. Each movement, each gesture, was designed to maintain balance and rhythm. A lamp, eternal or not, became part of this meditative cycle, a steady point in a world of motion. In tombs, the story is even more poignant. Imagine entering a chamber sealed for centuries. The air is still, almost heavy. Dust hangs in long streaks. And there, against all expectation, a lamp glows. Its flame shivers gently, as if breathing, as if aware of your presence. It does not illuminate much. It is small, humble, but it is enough. Enough to remind you that continuity, even in miniature, is a comfort. Some scholars argue that such lamps were never truly eternal. Perhaps a hidden supply of oil fed the wick. Perhaps certain materials burned exceptionally slowly. Perhaps it was all imagination, a story enhanced by the need for wonder. And yet, in each of these possibilities, there is a lesson. Even an ordinary flame tended carefully can give the same calm, meditative rhythm that an eternal lamp provides. Picture yourself sitting cross-legged on the marble floor of an ancient shrine. The light from a small lamp dances across the inscriptions on the wall. Your breathing slows, your heartbeat quiets, and the world outside seems far away. Tap, press, stroke. The lamp glows steadily. You imagine the hands that lit it centuries ago, and the hands that may have tended it before that. Across time, a quiet connection forms. Even when the lamp finally goes out, it leaves an impression. The charred wick, the faint smell of smoke, the tiny circle of blackened clay. These remnants are proof that attention, care, and ritual can outlast the everyday chaos of life. Perhaps this is the true lesson of the eternal lamps. Not the persistence of fire, but the persistence of mindful presence. And now, as you drift deeper into the story, let me gently remind you. If you are enjoying this quiet journey into history, you can like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps keep these soft, calming tales alive, so more stories can find their way to you. Returning to Rome, the streets themselves were filled with lamps at night. Not all eternal, not all sacred, but all contributing to the rhythm of the city. Light flickered from windows, from shop entrances, from the small shrines that dotted alleys. Each lamp offered a gentle beat, a small punctuation in the slow narrative of daily life. For citizens returning home, for travelers walking cautiously through the dark, for children listening to bedtime stories, these lamps were steady companions. The eternal lamps, then, were not just objects. They were ideas, anchors of thought, markers of endurance, symbols of comfort. They reminded those who saw them that even in a world of impermanence, something small, something quiet, could persist. And in this persistence, there is a kind of peace, a gentle invitation to slow down, to breathe, to rest. The quiet spread of these stories was not limited to Rome alone. As the empire's influence expanded, so too did the whispers of its flames. Merchants traveling east carried tales of lamps that never extinguished. Sailors crossing the Mediterranean repeated them at harbors, their voices low, as if the words themselves held fragile magic. The story grew like a current beneath the surface, unseen but steady, flowing into distant lands. Imagine a caravan moving across a desert road at dusk. The sun dips, the sands cool, and one trader leans closer to the others. He speaks of a lamp hidden deep in a Roman tomb, still burning after centuries. The others listen, their faces soft in the firelight of their camp. No one questions the details too sharply. The rhythm of the tale matters more than its accuracy. The words themselves, slow and deliberate, become a lull, a pause in the weariness of travel. In faraway temples, priests and scholars compared these tales with their own traditions. In Egypt, where fires burned in honor of Ra, the idea of endless flame was familiar. In Persia, sacred fires symbolized eternal truth. The Roman lamps became part of this broader tapestry, stitched together with myths of constancy and light. Each culture added its own layer, softening the edges of the story into something universal. The practical details remained fascinating. How could such a flame last? Some imagined secret chambers that stored oil, slowly feeding the wick through hidden channels. Others thought certain minerals in the clay might react with the air, producing light without fuel. A few insisted it was divine intervention. The debate itself had a rhythm, an endless cycle of theories and counter-theories, echoing like footsteps along a marble hall. But beyond the speculation, the heart of the story was simpler. A flame that lasted longer than expected became a symbol of hope. Hope that something fragile could endure. Hope that light could outlast darkness. Hope that memory itself might never truly vanish. Picture now the ruins of a villa where vines curl over broken walls. In one corner sits a lamp, cracked but intact. For a moment, you imagine it still glowing. You see the faint shimmer on the stone, the soft flicker against the ivy leaves. Even if the flame is gone, the idea of it lingers. Your mind holds the light, and in that imagining, the flame endures. Scholars in medieval monasteries would later copy these stories into their manuscripts. Their pens moved slowly, each letter a deliberate mark. Between prayers and chants, they preserved the accounts of Roman lamps, treating them not as curiosities, but as lessons. For the monks, the flame became a metaphor for devotion, for the steady repetition of prayer, for the quiet discipline of endurance. Time itself began to blur around these stories. The Roman lamps, whether real or imagined, existed outside the ordinary flow. They became timeless in their retelling, always glowing, never extinguished, always waiting for the next listener. This quality gave them a dreamlike presence, like something glimpsed at the edge of sleep. In the stillness of night, if you close your eyes and picture them, you might see one yourself. A small clay vessel, its surface worn, its edges simple. A wick curls upward, glowing at its tip. The flame sways slightly, not hurried, not restless, simply present. Around it, shadows breathe in slow patterns. You watch, and with each moment, you feel your body sinking deeper into calm. The eternal lamps, then, were not only about fire. They were about rhythm, patience, continuity. They were reminders that even in the vast churn of history, there are moments of stillness, small, enduring lights that soften the dark. In the quiet of ancient libraries, among scrolls stacked like sleeping leaves, the story of the lamps found another home. Scribes copied the accounts carefully, their ink strokes slow and steady, as though they feared rushing might disturb the flame itself. Each retelling added a subtle variation, but the essence remained. A fire that lingered, calm and unyielding. Scholars debated the meaning. Some said the lamps were proof of lost knowledge, secrets of alchemy, recipes of oils that no one remembered. Others claimed they were parables, created to inspire awe rather than to record fact. Yet the debates never seemed urgent. Instead, they drifted like gentle conversation, filling hours with the sound of speculation, as soothing as wind moving through reeds. There is something deeply lulling in the thought of a light that does not end. Picture yourself in a darkened chamber, the stone cool beneath your feet. At the center rests a small lamp, the flame rising and falling in steady rhythm. Around you, silence pools like water. Nothing presses forward, nothing demands. The flame has always been there, and in its presence, time feels unimportant. Travelers spoke of such lamps with quiet awe. Imagine a sailor returning from a long voyage, his skin tanned from the sun, his voice low as he tells of seeing a tomb where a lamp still burned after centuries. His listeners lean in, not to verify the truth, but to share in the comfort of the image. In their minds, the sea's vast darkness becomes less intimidating when they picture a flame that never falters. Over time, the story grew gentler. It was no longer just about marvels or mysteries. It became about endurance, about holding on. Parents told it to children, softening the edges, letting the thought of endless light ease fears of the night. Monks whispered it in cloisters, the flame becoming a symbol of prayer unbroken. Artists painted lamps into their margins, small details glowing at the edges of illuminated manuscripts. Even as centuries turned, the flame did not belong to Rome alone. It became a universal idea, woven into the fabric of human imagination. Every culture that heard it saw in it something familiar. For some, it was hope. For others, it was memory. For still others, it was the persistence of spirit, the refusal of life to be extinguished entirely. Close your eyes and let yourself drift into that space. The world outside falls quiet. You hear only the faintest sound, the imagined crackle of a wick, the soft hum of air as it bends around the glow. The flame does not brighten or dim, it simply exists. Like breathing, like the slow rhythm of waves against the shore, it carries you deeper into calm. Stories like this do not rush. They move with the pace of the flame itself, steady, unhurried, patient. The eternal lamps remind us that there is beauty in slowness, in constancy, in the quiet unfolding of time. And as you listen, you may feel your thoughts soften like shadows leaning toward the light. The lamps, whether they truly burned for centuries or only in the minds of those who believed, have done their work. They remain alive in the imagination, in the way they invite stillness, in the way they encourage rest. Somewhere in the Roman countryside, the ruins of an old villa still stand. Stones worn by centuries lean against one another, the outlines of rooms faint but recognizable. Among them, there are stories whispered of a hidden chamber where one of the eternal lamps once glowed. Whether the tale is fact or imagination hardly matters. What matters is the vision it offers. Picture stepping into such a place. Dust gathers in the corners, vines curl across fallen walls, and the air is cool, carrying the scent of earth and moss. Yet at the heart of this quiet ruin, a single lamp burns. The flame is small, not fierce or dramatic, but gentle, barely moving, as though it has reached perfect balance with the air around it. Its light spreads across the stone, soft and golden, turning shadows into calm companions. Legends say travelers who found such lamps felt no fear. The moment the glow touched their faces, weariness slipped away. Not replaced by energy, but by something deeper, a steady stillness that asked for nothing, promised nothing, and yet gave peace. It was said the flame did not judge or command. It simply kept watch, as it always had. In monasteries centuries later, monks would tell each other of these lamps while sitting in silence. One might speak the story softly, and the others would close their eyes, imagining the flame before them. Their prayers slowed. Their breaths matched the rhythm of the imagined light. In those moments, time was not a chain pulling them forward, but an open field stretching endlessly. Even artists found themselves captivated. On parchment and stone, lamps appeared again and again. Curved shapes, simple wicks, halos of glow. They were drawn not as grand spectacles but as quiet presences, background guardians. The artists did not need to show the brilliance of the flame. They showed its persistence, its refusal to vanish. The Romans themselves likely did not think of the lamps as magical. To them, they may have been curiosities, artifacts of skilled craftsmanship, clever oils, or secret methods lost to time. Yet in their ordinariness lay the seed of wonder. For when something endures beyond expectation, it invites us to step back, to reconsider the boundaries of the ordinary world. Imagine sitting now in your own quiet room, the day behind you fading into memory. You picture that same small lamp, its glow steady, its warmth reaching across distance and years. The longer you hold it in your thoughts, the calmer you become. It is not a flame of urgency, but of patience. It does not call you forward, but rather allows you to rest exactly where you are. Stories like this have a way of softening the sharpness of life. They remind us that even in the rush of history, there have always been spaces of stillness, flames waiting quietly, carrying time without hurry. And as you listen, you may feel that same stillness extending toward you now, asking nothing, offering only rest. The eternal lamps of Rome may have faded in truth, their wicks burned, their oils exhausted. But in the imagination, they remain lit, steady as ever. They are not flames of fire alone. They are flames of memory, of continuity, of the human wish for something that lasts. So, when the night feels long or the silence stretches wide, think of that glow. A lamp, small and unwavering, holding the dark at bay not with force, but with quiet presence. And as you do, let yourself lean toward it until you feel its calm embrace. The fascination with eternal flames was not limited to Rome. Across the ancient world, there were whispers of lights that never died. In temples of Greece, fires were tended so carefully that they seemed unending. In Persia, sacred flames were kept alive by generations of priests, never allowed to fall into darkness. Yet the Roman stories of lamps sealed in tombs or hidden chambers carried a different kind of mystery. These were not fires maintained by watchful hands. They were said to be flames left alone, hidden away, yet somehow enduring. That made them even more compelling, for they seemed to belong not to ritual or duty, but to the unknown itself. How could something, left untouched, continue without fail? The question was less about mechanics and more about wonder. Travelers who returned from distant lands often carried such tales with them. In dimly lit taverns, voices hushed as someone began to describe a crypt discovered far beneath a ruined city. And there, the voice would say, was a lamp still burning, though no one had entered for centuries. The listeners leaned closer, not because they sought proof, but because they wanted to borrow the calmness of the vision. In time, the stories blended together. Lamps of Greece, flames of Persia, tales from Egypt, all merged into a single stream of legend. The eternal lamp became less a fact of history and more a symbol, one that every culture could recognize. It spoke of persistence, of something surviving beyond expectation. And so, the flame grew larger in imagination than it ever could in reality. It was no longer tied to oil, wick, or vessel. It became an idea that somewhere, hidden in the folds of time, a small light always glows. Not bright enough to dazzle, not strong enough to dominate, just steady enough to remind us that endurance is possible. There is a rhythm to this thought, like breathing. Inhale with the glow, exhale into the darkness. Inhale with the patience of the flame, exhale with the weight of worry. Slowly, the body loosens, the mind quiets, and the imagined lamp becomes less a story you've heard and more a presence you feel. The Romans, with their love of monuments and endurance, may have cherished this story more than most. Their empire was vast, their structures built to last, their roads stretching endlessly. Yet even they must have known that time wears everything down. Perhaps in the gentle image of a flame that resisted time, they found comfort too. A reminder that not everything crumbles, not everything fades. And so, generation after generation, the story lived on. In scrolls, in whispered conversations, in the quiet corners of libraries. The flame moved not through the air, but through memory, glowing softly in the minds of those who carried it forward. Even now, as you listen, it flickers within your imagination. The flame is small, but it does not waver. It waits for nothing. It asks for nothing. It simply exists, calm and enduring, steady as rest itself. When historians of later centuries tried to make sense of the stories, they often searched for explanations in science. Some suggested that the oils used in these lamps were made from rare mixtures, substances so pure and refined that they could burn for ages without fading. Others speculated about wicks spun from secret fibers, resistant to decay. Still others imagined sealed chambers where air circulated in just the right way, allowing a flame to live longer than nature would normally permit. But no explanation ever fully satisfied. Every attempt, no matter how careful, ended in the same quiet place: uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, the charm of the story only grew. For a mystery half solved is sometimes more soothing than one explained. To leave the flame without answer is to allow it to keep glowing, not in stone or oil, but in the imagination. There is a certain peace in accepting that some things need not be known completely. The Romans themselves, so skilled in engineering, so practical in their designs, must have also felt this balance. They built aqueducts to last, bridges to endure, amphitheaters to echo through centuries. Yet even they let some mysteries rest quietly, unmeasured. Perhaps the eternal lamp was one of them, a quiet marvel they observed without needing to unravel. Think of the comfort this offers. Imagine walking through a Roman street at dusk. The air carries the smell of bread cooling in clay ovens. Voices drift like soft currents. Sandals press gently against stone. Then, within a doorway, you glimpse a lamp, its flame still alive. You are told it has burned for years, longer than anyone remembers. You pause, not to question, but to feel the quiet assurance that it will burn again tomorrow. Generations passed with this same calm thought. Children grew up hearing it from their elders, who in turn had heard it from theirs. And each retelling was like adding another drop of oil to the flame. Not physical oil, but the kind found in memory and imagination. It meant the lamp could never truly fade, for as long as the story was told, its glow remained. Even now, centuries later, you carry that light with you. Not in your hands, not in a vessel of clay, but in your thoughts. Close your eyes and see it, small, golden, and endlessly steady. It flickers slightly, but never wavers. Its warmth does not demand attention, but gently fills the space around it. The longer you picture it, the slower your breath becomes, the softer the edges of the world feel. Perhaps that is why the story survived. Not because of oil or wick or chamber, but because of what it gives. A way to imagine endurance, a way to feel calm in the endless passage of time. And so, the eternal lamps of Rome continue to glow, not in ruins or tombs, but in minds ready to rest in their light. In the quiet corners of Rome's memory, the story of the eternal lamps lingered like the echo of a soft song. Not loud, not insistent, just present. Whenever someone uncovered an ancient tomb or spoke of forgotten chambers, the thought would return. Perhaps somewhere in the dark, a flame still burned. The city itself often seemed built on such whispers. Beneath its bustling streets lay layers of the past, stacked one atop another, like pages in an unfinished book. Catacombs stretched for miles, and in their shadows, imagination worked freely. It was easy to picture a small lamp tucked in a niche, its glow still alive, untouched by centuries. Writers of later times played with this idea. They described tombs lit softly by flames that had outlasted empires. They wrote of kings and philosophers whose eternal rest was accompanied by a light that refused to vanish. Whether these tales were inventions or echoes of older reports, they fed the same gentle image: constancy in the midst of change. And constancy is often what people seek when the world feels uncertain. The flame was more than just fire. It was a symbol of something steady, something that would not abandon them even as generations passed. That was why it found its way into prayers, into art, into the soft rhythm of bedtime stories. Think again of the flame itself. Small, golden, almost motionless. It does not flare wildly or demand attention. It glows in its own rhythm, like a heartbeat, like breathing. The more you focus on it, the more your own thoughts begin to follow its pace. Slower, calmer, quieter. Perhaps that is the real reason the lamps lived so long in memory. Not because they defied nature, but because they gave people a way to rest. A story that steadies the mind is as enduring as any flame. And so the tale was carried onward, age after age, like a lamp passed from hand to hand, never truly extinguished. Even now, in the hush of night, the story continues. And as you listen, you become part of that same quiet chain, keeping the flame alive not in stone or oil, but in the space of your own imagination. The Romans were great builders of permanence. Their aqueducts carried water for centuries, their bridges still stood long after the empire fell, and their roads stretched like endless veins across the land. Yet even among these feats, the idea of a flame that never died seemed to hold a softer kind of permanence. It did not tower like stone, nor roar like armies. It simply endured, in silence. In old records, some writers claim to have seen these lamps themselves. A traveler might describe entering a forgotten crypt, brushing away dust, and finding a vessel still glowing faintly. The wick would be short, the oil low, and yet the flame remained, as if balanced on the edge of impossibility. Such accounts were rarely challenged, for they offered no harm. Instead, they added a quiet wonder to the long corridors of history. As the stories spread, they changed shape. In some versions, the flame was eternal because it was blessed by the gods. In others, it was a trick of rare oils, or the craft of alchemists who knew secrets long since lost. But the precise cause never mattered. What mattered was the feeling the story carried, that in a world of change and decline, something could stay constant. Picture that feeling for yourself. The world outside grows dim, the noise fades, and before you rests a lamp. Its light does not flash or flicker. It holds steady, golden and warm. Around it, shadows bend softly, but they never press too close. You sit before it, and your breath begins to slow, matching the rhythm of the flame. It is not only a story now, it is a presence you can feel, soothing and unhurried. Generations leaned on this image. Parents told it to children when the night felt too large. Travelers shared it when the road ahead seemed uncertain. Monks carried it into their prayers, seeing in the flame a mirror of their devotion. Always the same, always patient, always there. Perhaps this is why the flame outlasted the empire itself. Rome fell, its marble cracked, its legions vanished. But the flame in memory stayed, because it belonged not to stone or conquest, but to the quieter endurance of the human imagination. And as you listen now, you carry it too. The flame glows within your thoughts, steady and endless, a companion in silence. Some stories say the lamps were placed in tombs by families who wished their loved ones never to rest in darkness. They imagined the soul comforted by the glow, guided gently into eternity. To them, the flame was more than fire. It was companionship, a presence that eased the long silence after life. In other tellings, the lamps were gifts to the gods. Placed in shrines, they were meant as offerings of devotion that would never fade. The flame's endurance became a prayer without words, longer, stronger, and steadier than anything the tongue could speak. Over the centuries, scholars argued about these accounts. Some dismissed them as legends, stories made larger with each retelling. Others searched for evidence, hoping to find vessels or oils that proved the tales. Yet whether they doubted or believed, both sides returned again and again to the same image. A small, calm flame, steady in the dark. That is the power of such a vision. It needs no proof, because its effect lies not in fact, but in feeling. Even if the lamps never truly burned for centuries, the idea of them still brings rest. You need only close your eyes and imagine one, glowing softly before you, to feel the calm it promises. The Romans, with their love of grandeur, may have built vast monuments of stone and bronze. But the story of the eternal lamp became a different kind of monument. one made not of material, but of memory. It is a monument that cannot crumble, for it exists wherever it is remembered. Think of this as you listen. Somewhere, far beyond the reach of history, a flame glows. It is neither large nor fierce. It does not rush or fade. It simply continues, always the same, always steady. The more you think of it, the more your own breath aligns with its rhythm, slow and gentle. And in that rhythm, the world grows softer. The weight of time, the noise of life, all begin to loosen. What remains is only the light, constant and kind, waiting quietly in the dark. In the old streets of Rome, storytellers would sometimes gather children around and speak of the lamps. They told them that deep beneath the city, in forgotten chambers, little flames still glowed, unseen but alive. The children would listen wide-eyed, imagining halls of stone lit not by torches, but by lamps that never needed a hand to tend them. To them, the idea was not strange. Children believe in continuance more easily than adults. To a child, the world is full of things that go on forever. The sun always rises, the river always flows, and so why should a lamp not burn without end? Grown scholars, however, debated fiercely. Some argued that the Romans must have discovered oils unknown to us today, mixtures so perfect they could resist decay. Others believed the lamps were sealed within airtight chambers, their fuel preserved beyond what seemed natural. A few even whispered that the secret lay in sacred rituals, blessings that bound the flame to time itself. But as centuries passed and empires fell, the truth of the matter blurred. Archaeologists unearthed lamps buried beside the dead, some filled with hardened oil, others blackened with soot. None, however, still burned. This absence did not erase the tale. It only deepened its mystery. Legends often thrive not because of what is found, but because of what is not. The silence of proof becomes fertile ground for wonder. And so, the eternal lamps of Rome, whether real or not, continued to glow in the imagination of poets, monks, and dreamers. Picture them now, rows of small clay vessels, each with a gentle wick, arranged carefully in alcoves carved into stone. Their light is dim, not blinding, and yet it fills every corner with peace. You might see dust drifting in the glow, shadows moving like slow dancers on the walls. Time has no power here, only the flame. As you imagine this chamber, let your breath follow the same quiet pace. Inhale as if you are drawing in the soft light. Exhale as if you are releasing every shadow it reveals. Each breath is another flicker of calm, steady and endless. This is how the Romans hoped eternity might feel. Not heavy, not cold, but lit by something gentle and unwavering. In the hush of Roman nights, when streets emptied and the hum of the day dissolved into silence, some citizens claimed they could sense the hidden flames. Not see them, but sense them, like a faint warmth carried on the air or a golden hush behind the stone walls. Priests of old temples spoke of them with reverence. To them, the lamps were more than light. They were guardians, keeping vigil over tombs, sanctuaries, and shrines. A flame that needed no tending seemed like a gift from the gods, proof that divine presence lingered in every chamber it touched. Travelers brought the stories across oceans. In distant lands, whispers spread of Rome's eternal lamps, flames that could not be extinguished even by the weight of centuries. Some cultures compared them to their own myths. Ever-burning fires of temples, sacred braziers that blazed without rest, torches carried by gods through endless night. The world seemed to echo the same longing, the same dream of light that lasts forever. Yet reality softened these tales. When explorers returned to old ruins, they found only fragments, shattered lamps, dust where flame once lived. Still, absence did not erase belief. Instead, it gave the stories an almost sacred stillness. For if a mystery could not be solved, then it remained open, eternal in its own way. Imagine walking through such a ruin. The floor is uneven, broken by time. Columns stand half-fallen, like weary giants leaning on invisible shoulders. But then, in a dark alcove, you notice a small clay vessel. Its surface is cracked, its wick long gone, but something about it feels alive. You lean closer, half expecting a glow to pulse from within. And though you see no flame, your mind supplies one. In that moment, you realize the true endurance of the lamps is not in oil or fire, but in the human need to believe. To believe that something gentle might resist decay, that some lights never dim, that warmth can be carried across centuries like a secret. Let yourself rest in that thought. The flame may be small, but it is steady. The room around it is still, but not empty. Everything is calm, timeless, endless. In some quiet corners of the empire, families preserved the lamps as part of their daily lives. Not all were eternal, and not all were sacred, but even the smallest flame offered continuity. Each evening, as oil was poured and wicks were trimmed, a rhythm was established. A rhythm that spoke of order, patience, and the subtle comfort of routine. Imagine sitting beside one of these lamps. The room is silent except for the soft hiss of the flame and the faint scent of olive oil. Shadows move gently across the walls, forming shapes that seem to breathe with the light. In these moments, the world outside, with all its noise and haste, fades into unimportance. Priests and scholars noted the lamps in their manuscripts, describing the techniques of maintenance, the vessel's materials, and the subtle qualities of the flame. Yet beyond the practicalities, they often reflected on the calm the light brought. The flame's steady presence became a metaphor for persistence, patience, and quiet endurance. Travelers spoke of these lights while crossing roads and rivers. Their voices were hushed, conveying reverence more than excitement. They described chambers deep beneath the city, alcoves tucked behind stone walls, where a small glow offered comfort to those who paused long enough to notice. It was a subtle illumination, enough to soften fear without startling the senses. Even today, we carry the memory of such lamps in our imagination. Close your eyes and see one. A small clay vessel, a wick curling upwards, a flame glowing softly. Its light is neither harsh nor intrusive, yet it fills the surrounding space with warmth and calm. The longer you picture it, the slower your own thoughts become. The beauty of the eternal lamps lies not in spectacle, but in steadiness. Unlike fireworks or bonfires, they do not demand attention. They simply exist, a quiet witness to the passage of time. And in imagining them, we are invited to pause, breathe, and rest. Some historians have argued that the eternal lamp was more a symbol than a reality, a poetic image meant to teach patience and reflection. Yet symbols, when felt deeply, hold as much power as any physical object. The lamp, real or imagined, continues to shine in our minds, a beacon of calm across the ages. Even in bustling Roman marketplaces, tales of the eternal lamps circulated quietly. Merchants spoke of them while weighing spices or measuring grain. Their voices lowered as they described hidden chambers where lamps had burned for centuries. The story was shared not to impress, but to create a moment of calm amidst the noise of daily life. The lamps themselves were humble in design. Clay vessels, simple wicks, and olive oil were all that was needed. Yet in this simplicity lay the power. The flame was steady, unassuming, and patient. It did not dazzle with brilliance, nor demand attention. It simply glowed, offering a gentle, reliable presence. Consider the people who tended these lamps. Perhaps a servant, or a priest, or a family member, quietly refilling the oil, trimming the wick, observing the slow rhythm of light and shadow. Their actions, deliberate and calm, became part of the meditation the lamp offered. Every motion, repeated day after day, mirrored the slow, persistent flicker of the flame. The lamps were also part of stories meant to soothe. Parents whispered their existence to children before bed. Look closely, they might say, and you will see a light that never dies, guiding even in the darkest hours. Children imagined themselves seated beside a warm glow, feeling safe, carried by the gentle rhythm of light and shadow. Over time, the flame became more than a physical object. It became an idea. It symbolized endurance, patience, and quiet continuity. Even when the empire fell, when marble crumbled and roads cracked, the story of the lamp persisted. It survived in manuscripts, oral tales, and now in your imagination as you listen. Close your eyes. Picture the lamp now. Its small flame dances softly, casting long, gentle shadows. The air is still. You breathe in the calm it offers, exhale the tension of the day. Time seems to slow. The world outside falls away. You are present with the light, steady and unhurried, unchanging in its gentle rhythm. The beauty of such lamps is not in their grandeur, but in their constancy. A quiet flame, held over centuries, teaches the same lesson as meditation: patience, awareness, and rest. And in this small, imagined light, you find the same calm that countless generations felt before you. The story of the eternal lamps often traveled quietly along trade routes. Merchants, sailors, and travelers carried tales of softly glowing chambers far from the bustling streets of Rome. Each retelling was like adding another layer of oil to the flame, keeping it alive in memory, even as the centuries passed. Some said the lamps were tucked into tombs, watching over the departed. Others claimed they were placed in temples, a gift to the gods that no mortal hand could extinguish. And some simply imagined them hidden behind walls, unnoticed by the living, yet glowing patiently through the quiet hours of the night. Picture now a dim chamber beneath the city, stone walls cool and smooth under your fingertips. A single clay lamp rests on a ledge, wick curled neatly, flame steady and small. The light moves gently across the walls, creating shadows that shift slowly, almost like breathing. There is no rush, no urgency, just the patient glow, calm and enduring. Generations of Romans, aware or unaware of the lamp, lived with its story. Priests, scholars, and storytellers all contributed to the lore, each adding small details: the color of the vessel, the scent of the oil, the precise way the flame moved. Yet all agreed on one thing: the light never died. This steady flame became a symbol of persistence in a world defined by change. Empires rose and fell, leaders came and went, and yet the imagined glow remained. It reminded people that some things endure, even if quietly. And in imagining the lamp, one could feel a sense of calm that no chaos could disturb. Consider yourself seated before the lamp. Its small golden glow spreads across the walls of the chamber. You take a slow breath in, as if drawing the warmth into yourself. Then exhale, letting tension drift away. With each moment, your mind grows quieter, your body softens, and the room around you seems filled only with the gentle pulse of light. The simplicity of the lamp is its greatest charm. It does not roar or demand attention. It simply exists, a presence that teaches the art of patience, the beauty of stillness, and the quiet joy of endurance. Even now, as you imagine it, the lamp continues to glow. Its light flows gently into your thoughts, inviting relaxation and a deep sense of ease. It is not just a story, it is a companion, a guide into calm, and a steady presence in the endless march of time. Over time, the eternal lamps became more than objects of legend. They became a source of meditation. Philosophers and thinkers considered the flame as a metaphor for constancy, endurance, and quiet strength. It was a reminder that even in the flow of change, there can be something that persists, unwavering and calm. Imagine walking through a quiet Roman courtyard at twilight. The day's warmth fades, the streets empty, and the air cools. In a small alcove, hidden from plain view, rests a lamp. Its flame flickers softly, casting a gentle glow over the stone walls. The shadows shift slowly, almost like breathing, yet the flame itself remains steady, never diminishing, never hurried. The Romans, though practical and logical, cherished these lamps for their subtle magic. Some believed they could guide the souls of the departed. Others thought of them as symbols of divine presence. But all agreed on one point: the flame's persistence was comforting. It was a quiet witness to the endurance of life, memory, and hope. Travelers who spoke of the lamps carried their calm across the Mediterranean. Sailors whispered tales of glowing crypts to merchants at harbor towns. Merchants in turn told them to children in distant cities. Each retelling was a small act of preservation, a way to keep the flame alive in the mind a sigh, even when the oil and wick had long vanished. Close your eyes and picture this: a clay vessel, small and unassuming, sitting on a stone ledge. A single wick curls upward, a golden flame glows steadily, illuminating the quiet space. There is no urgency, no spectacle, only calm. Each flicker is deliberate, each shadow soft, each moment slow. As you focus, you may notice your breath beginning to match the rhythm of the flame. Inhale slowly, drawing warmth and stillness into yourself. Exhale, releasing tension, letting the world outside fall away. The longer you hold this vision, the more peaceful you become, the more the lamp becomes a companion in stillness. The charm of the eternal lamps is not in their brilliance, but in their constancy. They remind us that endurance is gentle, that presence need not be loud, that a small light can illuminate even the deepest darkness. And in imagining it, we carry a piece of that calm into our own lives, moment by moment, breath by breath. Even as the centuries passed, the story of the eternal lamps lived on in subtle ways. Monks and scholars recorded their existence in manuscripts, not as sensational marvels, but as quiet reflections on endurance. Each text became a vessel of memory, carrying the flame forward across time, much like the lamps themselves. Imagine a library filled with scrolls, the air thick with the scent of parchment and ink. Somewhere in the back, on a low stone shelf, rests a clay lamp. Its flame burns gently, casting golden light across faded text. The shadows it produces are soft, rhythmic, and almost hypnotic. Here, knowledge and light coexist, each amplifying the calm presence of the other. Travelers told stories of glimpsing lamps in ruins, in quiet tombs, and in hidden temples. Each account, whether true or imagined, added to the collective vision of the eternal flame. The light was never dramatic or overpowering. It was gentle, consistent, and profoundly soothing, a perfect companion for those seeking rest or reflection. Consider the people who first encountered these lamps. Perhaps a servant, carefully refilling the oil, a priest, observing the rhythm of the flame during silent prayer, a family member, lighting the wick for a loved one's journey into eternity. Each interaction was deliberate, calm, and reverent, reinforcing the lamp's symbolic power of steadiness. Now, imagine yourself seated beside such a lamp. Its soft golden glow spreads across the room, illuminating every detail gently. The flame flickers just enough to remind you it is alive, but never enough to disturb the peace. Each inhalation draws in warmth and serenity. Each exhalation releases tension and restlessness. Even when the lamp eventually faded in the material world, its image remained vibrant in imagination. The eternal flame lived not in oil or wick, but in the minds of those who believed in its gentle persistence. It was proof that calm and steadiness could endure longer than any empire, bridge, or monument. And so, as you envision this quiet flame, let it become a companion. Its gentle presence encourages you to slow your breath, soften your thoughts, and find calm in the rhythm of the light. The lamp is not just a story, it is an invitation to rest, a beacon in the quiet darkness, and a reminder that persistence can be soft, steady, and endlessly comforting. Even beyond the city walls, stories of the eternal lamps traveled quietly across the countryside. Farmers, shepherds, and travelers spoke of chambers hidden beneath villas or tombs, where lamps glowed steadily despite the passage of decades. The tales were not dramatic. They were gentle, soft-spoken legends meant to soothe and inspire. The lamps themselves were remarkably simple. Clay vessels, olive oil, and a wick were all that was needed. Yet simplicity carried the deepest power. A small, steady flame can calm more profoundly than a blazing fire, for it invites reflection rather than awe. It encourages stillness rather than excitement. Think of a quiet chamber beneath a villa. The stone walls are cool and smooth. Dust floats lazily in the air. And at the center, a lamp glows gently, casting long, soft shadows that shift slowly across the room. Nothing rushes here. Time itself seems to pause. The flame is patient, enduring, a silent companion. Families who maintained these lamps did so with care and mindfulness. The act of refilling the oil, trimming the wick, and observing the flame became meditative, Each motion mirrored the lamp's own patience, fostering a quiet rhythm that soothed the mind. Stories of the lamps spread naturally, not through force or spectacle, but through the calm they inspired. Travelers carried them along roads and rivers, whispering the tales to merchants and children alike. Each retelling preserved the vision, ensuring that the gentle glow continued to exist in the imagination, even when the physical lamp no longer burned. As you picture this, imagine sitting before such a lamp. Its light is soft, golden, unwavering. Shadows move slowly around the walls. Your breath matches the rhythm of the flame. Inhale, calm and warm. Exhale, soft and steady. The world outside your mind fades, replaced by the comforting presence of steady light. The eternal lamp is more than just fire. It is patience embodied, calm made visible, and continuity made tangible. Its power lies in its constancy, in the reassurance it provides without demand or urgency. The longer you focus on it, the deeper your mind relaxes, the more you feel carried by its gentle glow. Even as centuries pass, even as empires rise and fall, the image of the lamp persists. It reminds us that persistence need not be grandiose. It can be quiet, gentle, and entirely sustaining. And in imagining it now, you become part of that enduring chain, keeping the calm flame alive in your mind. As centuries unfolded, the story of the eternal lamps became intertwined with daily life and quiet ritual. Monks in secluded monasteries lit small lamps, inspired by the tales of Rome's steady flames. The lamps were not grand or showy, yet their gentle glow offered a rhythm to the day, a moment of pause for contemplation and rest. Imagine a small, stone-walled chamber. The air is still, carrying a faint scent of olive oil. In the corner, a clay lamp rests on a low shelf, its flame flickering ever so slightly. Shadows play gently along the walls, stretching and bending like slow-moving water. There is no urgency, no noise, only the soft, consistent glow filling the space with calm. In ancient homes, families may have kept similar lamps, not for eternity, but for quiet reassurance. Each evening, the oil was replenished, the wick trimmed, and the flame observed. The act itself became meditative, a ritual of patience, reflection, and gentle awareness. Watching the steady light, one could feel time slow, the mind soften, and the heart ease into calm. Travelers who heard these stories carried them far from Rome. Merchants whispered about hidden chambers beneath crumbling villas. Children listened to tales of glowing lamps as they drifted to sleep. Scholars recorded the details meticulously, noting the materials, the technique, and the imagined endurance of the flame. Yet the most important aspect remained the same, the calm and reassurance it offered to those who imagined it. Close your eyes and envision the lamp now. Its soft golden light spreads slowly, illuminating the surrounding walls without harshness. Each flicker is deliberate and gentle, as if breathing alongside you. Your breath begins to match the rhythm of the flame. Inhale slowly, drawing warmth and calm into yourself. Exhale softly, releasing tension and worry. The brilliance of the eternal lamp is not in spectacle, but in constancy. It teaches the quiet power of patience, the beauty of calm, and the enduring strength of presence. The lamp does not demand attention. It simply exists, a beacon of gentle persistence in a changing world. Even today, the imagined glow continues. As you picture it, the chamber becomes your own sanctuary. The flame offers a quiet companionship, a rhythm to rest upon, a gentle reminder that steadiness can exist even amid uncertainty. Each flicker of light mirrors the slow, calm pulse of life, offering reassurance and comfort across the ages. In the end, the eternal lamps of Rome endure not because of oil or wick, but because of imagination, belief, and the human need for calm. In your mind, the flame continues to burn, steady and comforting, a companion in stillness, and a guide into the gentle rhythm of rest. Even in the busiest parts of Rome, the story of the eternal lamps had a quiet presence. Markets hummed with activity, children laughed in the streets, and the air smelled of bread and herbs. Yet beneath this bustle, the thought of a small, steady flame persisted. A gentle idea carried from home to home, from teacher to student, from parent to child. The lamps themselves were humble in design, simple clay vessels, olive oil, and a carefully curled wick. But their quiet power lay in their steadiness. Unlike a roaring fire or a torch blazing across a battlefield, the eternal lamp offered calm. It invited reflection rather than excitement, patience rather than urgency. Consider a chamber in an ancient Roman villa. The walls are cool, stone smooth under the fingers. Dust floats lazily in the golden light. A single lamp rests on a low shelf, its small flame steady and unwavering. Shadows stretch across the walls, shifting gently like slow-moving tides. Time feels suspended. Families who tended these lamps did so with care. Each evening, the oil was poured, the wick trimmed, and the flame observed. The act became a meditation, a quiet rhythm that matched the lamp's own patient glow. It was a moment of presence, a pause from the world outside, a way to slow the mind and rest the spirit. Travelers, too, carried stories of the lamps across distant lands. Merchants spoke of hidden chambers and glowing flames to customers and children alike. The story spread not because of spectacle, but because of the calm it inspired. Each retelling kept the flame alive in the imagination, ensuring that even long after the original oil had been spent, the lamp's light remained. Close your eyes and picture it now. The lamp's small golden flame casts gentle light, creating long, soft shadows across the chamber. Your breath begins to sync with its rhythm. Inhale slowly, drawing in warmth and calm. Exhale gently, releasing tension and worry. With each breath, the lamp's presence fills your mind, offering quiet reassurance and ease. The eternal lamp teaches the value of steadiness. Its light does not demand attention, nor does it hurry. It simply exists, a beacon of calm, a companion in stillness, and a gentle guide through the quiet hours. Its endurance reminds us that patience and presence can be as powerful as fire or stone. Even now, as you imagine it, the lamp continues to glow. The chamber feels safe, the air soft, and your mind calm. The flame is both ancient and immediate, a bridge across centuries, carrying serenity and rest wherever it is remembered. The story of the eternal lamps traveled quietly through time, passing from teacher to student, parent to child, and traveler to listener. Each retelling added life to the image of the gentle, steady flame. Even as empires rose and fell, the lamps persisted, not in physical form, but in memory, imagination, and quiet reflection. Imagine a small stone chamber beneath a villa or temple. The air is cool and still. A single clay lamp rests on a low ledge, its wick curled perfectly, flame flickering softly. Shadows stretch across the walls like slow, flowing water, dancing in harmony with the light. Nothing rushes here. Everything moves at the pace of the flame, deliberate, calm, and gentle. Families who maintained such lamps performed the task with care. The oil was poured, the wick trimmed, and the flame observed with attention and reverence. Each action mirrored the lamp's own patience, creating a rhythm that invited reflection and peace. Watching the small, steady glow, one could feel time itself slow, allowing the mind to settle and the heart to rest. Travelers spoke of the lamps as they journeyed across cities, hills, and rivers. They told stories of glowing chambers tucked behind walls, of light that endured despite centuries of neglect. Each account kept the lamp alive in imagination, ensuring that even when the original flame burned out, its presence persisted in thought and memory. Close your eyes and picture this scene. The golden light of the lamp fills the chamber softly, illuminating stone walls and gentle shadows. Your breath matches its rhythm, slow and deliberate, rising and falling in sync with the flicker. The calm penetrates your mind, softening tension, easing the day's weight, and bringing a deep sense of rest. The charm of the eternal lamp lies in its constancy. Unlike a roaring fire or the glare of the sun, it does not demand attention. It simply exists, quietly steady, providing comfort and reassurance. It becomes a companion in stillness, a gentle reminder that patience and endurance can exist even amid change. Even now, the lamp lives in your imagination. Its light continues to glow, gentle and unwavering. The chamber remains calm, shadows soft, and your thoughts slow and peaceful. The flame bridges centuries, carrying a quiet, enduring calm from ancient Rome into the present moment. And so, the eternal lamp is more than a story. It is a meditation, a guide into stillness, and a gentle, enduring companion for anyone who chooses to imagine its soft, golden glow. In the quiet corners of Roman villas and temples, the lamps were more than mere illumination. They were anchors of calm. In the evenings, after the city's bustle faded, families would gather near the lamps, observing their gentle glow. The flames seemed to move in time with their breathing, a subtle companion to the slow unfolding of night. The design was simple: clay vessel, olive oil, a curled wick. Yet simplicity carried immense power. Unlike torches or braziers, which roared and demanded attention, the eternal lamps offered tranquility. The flame encouraged stillness and reflection, inviting observers to slow their thoughts and be present with the light. Priests in temples often meditated beside these lamps. The small, steady glow became a rhythm for prayer, a guide to patience, and a symbol of endurance. In silence, the flame taught a gentle lesson: constancy, the ability to persist without force, and the quiet strength of enduring presence. Imagine a chamber beneath a villa. Stone walls are cool under your fingertips, dust drifts lazily in the air. A clay lamp rests on a ledge, flame steady and small. Shadows stretch along the walls like slow dancers, soft and hypnotic. There is no rush, no urgency, only calm, patient light. Stories of these lamps traveled beyond the city. Travelers, merchants, and scholars whispered about glowing chambers, hidden corners where light persisted despite centuries of change. Each retelling preserved the lamp in memory, ensuring its calm endured even when the original flame no longer burned. Picture now yourself seated beside this lamp. Its gentle glow fills the chamber. Your breath begins to align with the rhythm of the flame. Inhale slowly, drawing warmth and calm. Exhale gently, releasing tension and worry. Each flicker encourages your mind to soften. Each shadow invites rest. The lamp's power is not in grandeur or brilliance, but in constancy. It does not shout or demand. It simply exists, a steady companion in stillness. Its gentle glow becomes a bridge across time, carrying calm from ancient Rome into the present moment. Even as empires rose and fell, as marble crumbled and cities changed, the eternal lamp remained alive in imagination. Its light, though imagined, provided the same gentle reassurance it did centuries ago, a reminder that patience, constancy, and quiet endurance are as enduring as any stone or monument. And now, as you visualize the lamp, let it guide your own thoughts into calm. Its small flame continues to glow, steady and comforting, filling the chamber of your mind with warmth and gentle light. In this quiet presence you find rest, serenity, and a sense of timeless peace. The lamps of Rome were not only companions of homes and temples, they were also silent witnesses to history. In hidden vaults beneath the city, their flames were said to have burned beside scrolls, relics, and offerings. The flame, small yet steady, watched over treasures as centuries shifted above. When storms shook the city, lightning struck temples, or streets echoed with chaos, the lamps within their stone chambers remained unchanged. Their flame did not know of turmoil. It swayed gently, content within its circle of oil and clay. For those who tended them, the lamps were symbols of resilience, proof that serenity could exist even in the midst of upheaval. Romans often told quiet stories of wandering into forgotten rooms and finding a lamp still burning. To them, it was not just fire, but a presence, a whisper of continuity. Some believed the flame was alive, carrying the essence of time itself. Others said it was a message from the gods, reminding mortals of patience and endurance. Picture walking into such a room. The air is cool, heavy with age. Dust lies untouched on stone shelves. Yet in the center, a lamp glows softly. Its flame is small but unwavering. The quiet is deep, the shadows calm. You feel your heartbeat slow, as if the room itself is breathing with you. These flames became metaphors for the soul, steady, enduring, glowing quietly through life's changes. Families often kept lamps burning at household altars, believing the flame connected them to ancestors, guiding their dreams and watching over their rest. As the centuries passed, many lamps faded naturally. Their flames died when oil ran out or when chambers were abandoned. Yet their memory lingered. The idea of the eternal lamp did not end with Rome. It carried forward, whispered into later cultures, where lamps again symbolized faith, constancy, and peace. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine such a lamp in your own space. Its clay form rests quietly. Its oil burns gently. Its flame glows steady. Watch as the light flickers and softens the room around you. Notice how shadows stretch slowly, how each movement of the flame feels like a breath, calming and constant. The eternal lamps remind us that peace does not need to be loud or grand. A single flame can ease the mind, guide reflection, and bring stillness, even across centuries. It burns not to dazzle, but to comfort. As you sit with this image, let your mind soften further. Your breath aligns with the flame, slow and steady. Each exhale carries you deeper into rest. Each inhale fills you with quiet warmth. The eternal lamp, though ancient, continues to glow within imagination, offering calm, patience, and the gentle rhythm of timeless light. The quiet endurance of Rome's eternal lamps found its way into poetry. Writers described them not as mere fire, but as small suns, fragments of the heavens brought down to earth. Each flame was imagined as a star, keeping its place among the constellations, yet close enough to warm the hearts of mortals. One poet wrote of a traveler entering a forgotten crypt where centuries of silence had collected. Dust layered the air, and carvings on the walls had softened with age. Yet in the center stood a single lamp, its flame glowing as though untouched by time. The traveler, weary from his journey, felt a wave of peace as the light reached his eyes. He sat, closed them, and for the first time in years, found sleep. Such stories were told not to impress with grandeur, but to soothe. They were gentle reminders that even in the weight of history, there are pockets of rest, where time moves slower, where a flame glows steadily, and where one can simply breathe. Temples, too, honored these lamps. Priests kept fires alive not only as offerings to gods, but as beacons of hope for the people. Entering a temple at dusk, one would find the great hall softened by rows of glowing lamps. Their flames moved together like a quiet chorus of light. The air, rich with oil and stone, held the warmth of centuries. Visitors often paused, allowing their thoughts to still as the lamps swayed gently before them. Imagine standing in such a hall. The world outside is filled with noise and haste. Yet here, inside, you are surrounded by calm flames. Each flicker whispers reassurance. Each shadow stretches softly along the walls. You breathe, and the hall breathes with you. Over time, the eternal lamps became symbols not just of religion, but of memory. Families lit lamps for their ancestors, believing the flame carried prayers upward. Travelers carried small lamps in their packs to guide them through uncertain nights. Lovers exchanged lamps as tokens of constancy, promises to keep the flame of devotion alive. The lamp was never about brightness. It was about presence. It did not banish all shadows, but it softened them, made them gentle, made them part of the peace. Tonight, as you listen, you too can imagine such a flame near you. Small, steady, unhurried. Its glow rests upon your face, upon your breath, upon your thoughts. With each passing moment, the flame eases you deeper into stillness. Its quiet rhythm becomes your rhythm. Its endurance becomes your own. Even when the body grows weary, even when the day feels heavy, the flame reminds you, you may rest, you may soften, you may allow the light to watch over you, as countless others have done through the long history of Rome and beyond. The eternal lamps burned for generations, and though many have faded, their story continues as a gentle lullaby, a song of flame, time, and peace that invites every listener to slow down, breathe, and drift softly into rest. The Romans often spoke of lamps as companions of the night. While torches blazed and faded quickly, a lamp's flame lingered, calm, measured, patient. It did not demand attention, it simply remained, a steady presence through the hours. In villas and modest homes alike, lamps were placed on tables beside beds. They glowed gently as families drifted into dreams. Children fell asleep watching the small flame move, while parents whispered stories in the dim light. To them, the lamp was more than practical. It was a guardian of rest. Archaeologists who later uncovered these lamps often found them worn, yet beautiful in their simplicity. Clay molded by hands long gone still carried the memory of flame. Some lamps bore carvings, leaves, vines, or faces of gods. Others were plain, yet equally sacred, for they had carried light in the quietest corners of Roman life. Think for a moment of a household long ago. Outside, the streets of Rome echo with footsteps, voices, perhaps the distant sound of a cart rolling across stones. But inside, the lamp glows softly. Shadows fall across the walls, stretching in gentle shapes. A child sighs in sleep, a parent closes tired eyes, and the flame continues, patient, enduring, silent. There is something soothing in the thought that across centuries, countless lives found rest by the same small glow. The flame did not ask for attention, yet it shaped dreams, guided prayers, and eased hearts through the night. Some believed that the lamps carried whispers, that as they burned, they spoke. Quiet voices of ancestors, guardians, or the gods themselves. Not words of command, but words of reassurance, reminding all who watched that they were safe, that the night was gentle, that peace could be found. Close your eyes now and imagine that gentle whisper. A flame flickering, soft shadows moving, and with them, a calm voice. Rest now. You are safe. The flame will watch while you dream. The eternal lamps of Rome may no longer burn in stone vaults and temples, but their story lingers as a flame of its own, alive in memory, alive in imagination, alive in the stillness of moments like this. Allow yourself to drift into that stillness, carried by the same quiet rhythm. The flame steadies, your breath steadies, and with every flicker, peace deepens. The lamps were eternal, not because their flames never died, but because their meaning never faded. Across centuries, across cultures, across dreams, they still glow, reminders that even the smallest light can hold the greatest calm. In the stillness of ancient Rome, the lamp became more than a vessel for flame. It became a metaphor for life itself. Philosophers often drew comparisons between the steady burn of a lamp and the quiet endurance of the human spirit. Just as oil sustained the flame, so too did wisdom, patience, and calm sustain the soul. One philosopher wrote, "A lamp does not rage against the dark. It accepts it, softens it, and glows." These words were repeated in schools and homes, reminding listeners that strength was not always found in brilliance, but in constancy. Priests, too, used lamps in rituals to mark the passage of time. At funerals, a lamp would be lit and placed near the body, symbolizing the light of the soul as it moved gently into the next world. At weddings, lamps were carried to bless the union, their steady flame a promise of devotion. And at festivals, streets were lined with glowing lamps, turning the city into a sea of gentle stars. Imagine standing among those streets, the air cool, the stones beneath your feet warm from the day's sun. Around you, hundreds of flames flicker together, a chorus of light against the night. The city quiets, the lamps sway, and a sense of belonging settles into your heart. The world feels slower, softer, safer. Centuries later, when ruins replaced temples and silence filled once bustling halls, travelers sometimes discovered lamps still intact. Though their flames had long faded, the vessels themselves carried presence. Holding such a lamp in one's hands felt like holding a fragment of stillness, an invitation to imagine the flame that once lived within. As you picture this, allow yourself to rest deeper. A lamp sits nearby, its glow soft and unwavering. It does not demand your attention, it simply offers comfort. The flame steadies your breath, your thoughts, your heartbeat. Each flicker is a lullaby, each shadow a gentle hand guiding you into peace. The eternal lamps remind us that light does not need to conquer darkness to hold meaning. It only needs to exist, quietly, faithfully, patiently, just as you now allow your own stillness to grow. Breathe gently and let the flame guide you inward. The lamps of Rome may be ancient, but their calm reaches into this moment, surrounding you with the same peace that soothed countless souls across centuries. There is a gentle irony in the eternal lamps of Rome. Though many have gone out, their story has never dimmed. The flame may have vanished from its clay cradle, but the memory of its light continues to glow, softer and perhaps even more enduring than the fire itself. Travelers in later centuries spoke of the comfort they found when imagining these lamps. They described walking among ruins where columns leaned and stones cracked, yet in their minds they could still see the glow of a lamp resting on an altar, its flame dancing quietly. In this way, the lamps remained eternal, not in their fuel, but in the peace they carried forward. It is easy to picture one even now. A small clay vessel, rounded and simple. A thin spout holds the flame, which sways with slow grace. Around it, shadows bend, stretching gently across smooth stone. There is no rush here, no urgency. Time itself feels hushed, patient, calm. Romans believed that watching a flame could soothe the spirit. Priests recommended sitting quietly before a lamp at night, breathing with its rhythm, letting the thoughts of the day fade into the glow. Even soldiers, hardened by battle, were said to rest more deeply when a lamp burned beside them, its steady flame reminding them of home. As you listen, let that same image guide you. Imagine a lamp glowing softly nearby. Its light eases the edges of your thoughts. Its warmth settles over you like a gentle blanket. Each flicker draws you deeper into rest, into calm, into stillness. The eternal lamps were more than objects. They were promises. Promises that night could be gentle, that shadows could be softened, that even in silence there was companionship. And though their flames may no longer burn, the promise remains alive, carried by memory and imagination, waiting to be felt whenever we close our eyes and picture the glow. Allow yourself now to sink into that promise. The lamp is here. The flame is steady. The night is kind. You are safe, watched over by the same quiet light that soothed countless souls across the centuries. The story of the eternal lamps ends not with extinction, but with continuity. The flames that once lived in Rome's temples now live in thought, in story, in moments like this. They burn within the imagination, eternal not in oil, but in meaning. And so, as you drift into rest, let the eternal lamp glow gently in your mind. A flame that never fades, a light that endures, a companion through the quiet night.